Alright, so it's been a hot minute since I filmed, and that's just because I'm only filming on this channel if I want to film and if I have a urge to, and so that's why I haven't. No other reason. I just haven't had any video that I felt the impulse to make, but today I had the impulse to make this video. This is going to be kind of a combination of an Autism Diaries, but also just in general about meltdowns. But I don't want to just label it like autism and meltdowns because it's going to be a little bit more of like personal than I would make a kind of more general, I guess, video. None of my videos are very general, they're all very personal. Today is June 19th. Okay, where do I start? So I look like shit. I mean, I don't think I look like shit, but I don't look done up. But I have like dried, I don't know, tear juice on my face. That's such a nice way to put it. And I am speaking more, I guess, like monotone than normal because today is kind of like a meltdown day, I guess is what we'll call it. I'm sure people who are autistic can relate because it sounds like an understatement to say like, oh, I had a meltdown today, because like the day isn't over, and if you say like, oh, I had a meltdown today, it kind of sounds like it's over and done with. But if you're on the spectrum and you've ever had a meltdown, you know that that shit lasts, okay? You don't just have a meltdown and then once you're, you know, done, you know, the midst of the meltdown of the crying or screaming or whatever it is, however you express it, there's a lot to recuperate and to regroup and get back to whatever your normal self is considered, right? I think a lot of people that are autistic can also relate to the fact that if you have one meltdown, you're probably not only gonna have that one, not always, sometimes you do just have one giant meltdown, but I know for me they come in like groups, you know. So like today I've already had two kind of more smaller sized meltdowns, but I probably like will have another one later today or some other time. Like, you know, it just doesn't feel finished. I'm sure if you're autistic you can relate to that feeling of like, yeah, I might have had one meltdown or something, but this shit ain't done. This shit ain't over with. You haven't even seen to the extent, little do you know just how bad it's about to get. Obviously there's no structure for this video, I'm just kind of talking about them. So okay, so something I was thinking about that I really wanted to touch on. People who are on the spectrum a lot of times get coined for being selfish. That's like a big thing you hear, is that, you know, look, people who are autistic are selfish, or they're acting this way in a selfish way, they're more selfish, or just that word gets thrown around. If you are on the spectrum, you've probably been called selfish for a lot of your life, or been told things that you do are selfish and blah 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 blah. You only think about yourself. Autistic people don't know how to be empathetic, all that shit, right? It dawned on me today, and maybe this is something that like everybody already knows, but I just realized it today, that whenever something I do is being coined as being selfish or whatever, you know, by society it's thought of as selfish, when I do it, it's never me acting out of something selfish, you know, entirely. It's going to be one of two things. I would say it's like 80-20. You know, I think when I was younger it was like the other way around with the 80-20, but anyways, you know, everybody has their different, that's irrelevant. Okay, most of the time the reason why I do a selfish thing is because I'm trying to avoid a meltdown, and people who aren't on the spectrum don't realize how terrible meltdowns are. And obviously I'm gonna be pretty emotional in this video because it's a meltdown day, okay? I think that I should just coin that word, June 19th, meltdown day. Maybe I should start calling them that instead of just saying like, oh, I had a meltdown, because meltdown day is like, yeah, that's so true. Like, you're fucking out for the day, right? At least, you know? I mean, I don't know, it takes me quite a while to recuperate, but I mean, each one's different. Okay, we all know this. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you're not on the spectrum and you don't know this. Yeah, meltdowns, you can have a fucking meltdown week. I mean, Purple Ella has been like having a meltdown month or months, you know what I mean? Anyways, so people who aren't on the spectrum don't realize the extent of how extreme a meltdown is. And that dawned on me today. I was like, they've never experienced a meltdown. Like, they don't have this constant threat of a meltdown looming over their head. You know what I mean? Like, because that's always in my mind. And I think that the majority of the way that somebody on the spectrum acts is acting in different strategic ways to hopefully ensure to not have a meltdown. Like, I know that's why I make most of the decisions I make. Not all of them, but I mean, like, my practical day-to-day decisions and things I do is just me living my life in hopes of avoiding a meltdown. And I think if you're autistic, you can relate to that. And so a lot of things that we do are seen as selfish, but in reality, it's just us taking precautions so that we don't get to this state. And we know, you know, the autistic person knows that nobody wants us to have a meltdown, right? Not only does it affect us, of course, but it also affects anybody around us. And it's also deeply embarrassing to have a meltdown around someone. Like, and it makes the meltdown worse when there's someone around for the person, for everyone involved, you know. Okay, this is a good example. Let's say a friend named Sam wants to go to Applebee's, but you as the autistic person know that you can't go to Applebee's because the music that they play is too loud, it's too busy, it's too this and that sensory thing. And you know that with the mood that you're in, you need to be somewhere like a small cafe that's quiet, okay? So you say, oh no, I don't really want to go to Applebee's. Like, we need to go to this cafe. Like, maybe you phrase it like that. Like, as the autistic person, you'll probably say like, oh, I can't go to Applebee's. I need to go to this coffee shop. I'm just making this shit up, but you know what I'm trying to say. So the non-autistic person is like, well, that's selfish. Why do we always have to do what you want to do? Like, I want to go to Applebee's. Like, why can't this person think of me for once? Like, hey, I'm also here. Like, my opinions also matter. But the autistic person is like, I know that if we go to Applebee's, I will probably have a meltdown, or if I don't have a meltdown, I'll have a shutdown. If I don't have a shutdown, I'll just be fucked up in some way, and I won't be fun to hang out with for you. Like, you won't enjoy me in the environment of that Applebee's, and neither will I. Like, it just will be shitty for both of us. And then if I have a meltdown, like, that's just gonna make a scene, and then you're gonna be embarrassed, and I'm gonna be embarrassed, and like, Applebee's will not be fun for either of us. So it's not necessarily that, like, I don't care, you know, like, the person that wants to go to the coffee shop, it's not because they really, like, they just like, oh, I need what I want, and it's my way or the highway, and this and that. It's mostly just like, I'm trying to avoid a meltdown here and have a good time for both of us, and it's the smartest thing for both of us to do to go to the coffee shop. And it may seem like we're unwilling and uncompromising, but we're actually making compromising because, like, we don't want to, at least I don't. I never want to be a bother to anyone. I hate having to do that shit. But I know that it'll be more of a bother for me to have a meltdown than for me to say, hey, we have to go here, or whatever the situation is. But a lot of times, you know, communication isn't the autistic person's forte, so we don't express all of the whys behind why we need to go to the coffee shop. So the other person just goes, ugh, it's them again, it's all about them and what they want, and I was really in the mood for this Applebee's food, which, I mean, who's in the mood for Applebee's, but you know what I'm saying. I would never eat at Applebee's. I'm vegan and I can't have gluten, so I don't know why the fuck that came into my mind, but I don't know. Yeah, the reality of the situation is we just don't want to have a meltdown, you know, because they're fucking horrible. And as somebody who's neurotypical, they don't understand how fucking terrible they are. And I watched a video today that a dad made that was like the 6 stages of a meltdown. People give a lot of flack for those kinds of videos, and I understand why, but as somebody who's autistic, I actually am very thankful for them when they're done right, and I think that his was done with a lot of respect, and it actually made me very, very emotional watching it, which I didn't expect. I mean, also because this is a meltdown day, so that means like anything that happens I'm emotional about. Because the dad was so kind, and he really knew how to deal with his children while having a meltdown. I was like, it was just so emotional to me because I was like, he gets it. Like, I mean, obviously he's never had a meltdown. The father isn't autistic, but I was like, he's really done his research. He's really paid attention to his kids and what they want. And when I was watching these videos, I was like, that's really how you handle someone who's having a meltdown, because people who are not on the spectrum do not know how to handle someone on a meltdown, like while they're having one. Yeah, no, it made me so emotional because like I've never really been treated with that kind of just complete kindness and understanding and patience when I'm having a meltdown around someone, and he was so accepting of it, and he was like, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just how they're feeling, you have to let them have it, it's so true. And anyways, okay, so the other reason why somebody that is autistic acts out of a selfish way is because we don't realize we are. That's the whole point of autism. You are aware of that. Like social issues, reading social things. So sometimes we'll act selfishly but not realize we're acting selfishly. I do this all the time, and I don't have any weight on it, and then the other person will be like, hey, why are you acting so selfish? And I'll be like, huh? Oh, I didn't realize, I don't care, I didn't put any weight on that, you do you, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know what I mean? Let's take the same Applebee's scenario. Somebody's like, hey, I want to go to Applebee's, and in your head you're like, oh, that's, you know, pretty far, that's this or that, the coffee shop's really close, and so you're like, hey, why don't we go to the hot coffee shop instead? Like, is that cool? And then the non-autistic person, and they feel obligated, and they think that the autistic person just like needs to go to the coffee shop and is this and that, and so they're like, there they are acting out of selfishness again, when in reality the person was like, I didn't really care either way, I just kind of suggested it, and I didn't realize that my way of acting was selfish. And so it's a fine line to draw between when the autistic person is accidentally acting selfish and not realizing it, and just like, because we can be oblivious of other people, it's hard, you know. Well, I'm not oblivious of other people, but I'm accidentally oblivious of cues that unwritten things, you know. And so I can say something or do something or ask something or whatever that can seem selfish, when in reality I'm just like not realizing it, and if I were to be called out for it, I'd be like, oh shit, nope, never mind, and I like back up. But then there are other times when it's like I'm putting my foot down for a reason, and those are the worst times, when you're putting your foot down about something and the only reason why is because of an avoidance of a meltdown, and the person doesn't get it. And it's really, really hard. I know for me, like, if I put my foot down about something and it's like a strong no, it's not just because I kind of don't want to, it's because I'm gonna fucking have a giant ass meltdown and be down for a day about it. So something that I kind of touched on a little bit is with meltdowns, like, they don't just like stop. You know, it's not like a, I am now having a meltdown, I'm now not having a meltdown. It's like they bleed into each other. And when you're autistic and you have a meltdown, it's rarely the thing that set you off is rarely the reason behind your meltdown. So for example, today, the thing that set me off was my toe. My big toe's infected, and I have a really bad blister, and I have eczema on the top of my foot. I can't really wear any shoes, and it's really fucking hard for me to walk, right? And when I have some kind of health issue that renders me immobile, even in the slightest, it really fucks me up emotionally. And then that leads to other things, and then that leads to other things, and then I go down this spiral, and then I have this giant meltdown. To the outside world, if I was like, oh, I'm having a bad day today, they'd be like, oh, what happened? I'd be like, oh, well, the only thing that really happened was my toe is kind of fucked up. And they'll be like, oh, well, you're on antibiotics? And I'm like, yeah, it'll get better soon. And they're like, oh. And I'm like, yeah. But the issue at hand isn't my toe, you know, it's everything. You know, I had a meltdown because the entire world was on my back. I had a meltdown because of all these unresolved things in my life came to the forefront, and I couldn't ignore them anymore, but the trigger was just my toe. So if I have a meltdown, it's rarely just because the one thing that is happening in the then and now. You know, it's rarely just because, oh, the lights are too bright, or oh, this routine was changed, right? It was because the routine was changed, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this layer of emotion, and this layer of emotion. And then if you're in front of people, there's that layer of emotion of, oh fuck, I'm in public about to have a meltdown, or I'm in front of somebody about to have a meltdown, and that's a whole other layer. And then you just spiral down, never ending, and it's all encompassing. A meltdown isn't just tears. A meltdown is one of the most physically exhausting things you can put your body through. I had a shutdown kind of recently, and I was just fucked up the next day, and I didn't even have a visceral reaction. It was like my body shut down, right? Which I guess maybe in the future I'll do another video on shutdowns, because those are a whole other topic. I was fucked up the next day, right? But in other people's head, it's like, oh, it's over, it was last night, but that shit carries. So, you know, tomorrow when I wake up, I'm not gonna be like, oh, had my meltdown day, I'm back to normal. No, it's gonna take me a really, really long time to recuperate from my meltdown, because it was all encompassing. It was physical, it was mental, it was emotional. It affects everything. And when you have a meltdown, like I said, it's not just because my big toe's in pain, right? It's because the world is on my shoulders, is the best I can describe it. What I mean when I say the world's on my shoulders, I mean all of the issues of not only my entire life, but everybody's life, the entire world is affecting me right now. And the realities of life are coming to me, and it's just like this horrible depression that's so extreme. And also when you're in the middle of a meltdown, it's like this visceral kind of depression where it's like anger and rage and pain and all of these horrible things. Basically everything negative. A meltdown is like every negative emotion ever stacked up on top of each other and just kind of all exploding at once. When I have a meltdown, it sucks because it really puts you back. Because as somebody who's autistic, you have to kind of work hard to be happy. I mean, maybe that's not true with everybody that's on the spectrum, but I think that we tend to be a sadder bunch. And so we really have to work, we have to work for our happiness. And we have to work, at least I do. I guess I should only speak for myself, and if you can relate, you can put it in the comments down below. But I have to work hard for my happiness. I have to really focus on it and put my best foot forward and pay attention to it and work at it. You know, I'm not just happy. I am happy because I made sure I am thinking positively. I'm doing this X, Y, and Z to make sure I'm happy, right? And I'm really putting in the time and really trying to focus on the positive and really putting in effort to feel this happiness. You know, I've been decently happy for the past few weeks. And so when you have a meltdown, all the sadness and the negativity of life that you were brushing under the surface in hopes of being happy come up. And you kind of have to start at square one. Every time that after you have a meltdown or a meltdown day or meltdown week or whatever it is, you're kind of starting at square one again and rebuilding your foundation. Because after a meltdown, everything's kind of been taken out of you. Every good thing has been taken out of you, and you're just left with the shit. And you have to relearn life. You have to relearn how to act, how to be, and you have to relearn positivity and happiness again. I mean, maybe that's not true with everyone, but it is very much true with me. You have to restart completely, and it's really, really hard. And it really takes a lot out of you, and it feels like, oh, all the work that I've put towards my progress, it's kind of all just disappeared, and I have to start at square one again and work again towards the progress. And so that's why if we put our foot down about something really intensely, like we're really like, I can't do it, it's because we're avoiding a meltdown, which in our head is we're just avoiding having to re-fucking start again, because it's really fucking hard. And meltdowns are not something to tamper with, and I just don't think that neurotypicals take them seriously enough. And it's one of the biggest things about autism is meltdowns, at least for me. And a lot of my life, as I've said, is governed by making sure that you don't have one. But yeah, so this is going to be part one of this video. I think part two is going to be kind of while you're in it, or I don't know. I have other things to talk about, but this video is long enough and my camera's going to overheat. These are my first initial thoughts. So just let me know whatever you want down below. I have a lot of trouble replying to comments. It's just really hard for me for whatever reason. But just know that I read them, and they really do mean a lot to me. I don't really know any people on the spectrum in real life, So it is very comforting to read anybody's comments. Just as I was saying that, my camera cut out, so I know this looks like shit, but I'm just gonna really quickly say bye, because like I said, it was gonna cut out. And also I wanted to put a little thing, so if you've heard this much or whatever, and if you live in the LA area or anywhere around it in California, and you're on the spectrum or something, and you like me or whatever, please reach out to me. Please contact me personally. You can always DM me via Instagram. It might take me a little bit to get back, but I'd love for you to reach out. Maybe we can meet up or something. I don't know. I just want to meet autistic people, and if you think I'm cool, maybe we'll get along. I don't know. Anyways, just putting that out there. Thanks for watching. Bye.